Well, welcome to our Compass TV show. I am so excited. We've had a beautiful fall, and the channel I was listening to this morning talked about that little white factor next week, but we're not going to even discuss that because we can go back a few years and remember when we had 2 feet of snow at the end of October. But we have something much more exciting to talk about this morning. And so with that, I'd like to welcome my guest. I have Jaen Weilage, and she's with A.C.E. of Lyon County Coordinator. Helps with the Lyon County area, correct?
Right.
Yep. And I have Becca, Badgett, who is the Community Wellness Coordinator Director at Heritage Point.
That's correct, yes.
And I'm sure you're wondering out there, okay, you've got A.C.E., you've got Heritage Point, and then you're there. What is going on? Well, we're really super, super excited. We have a national speaker coming to town. And Jaen, maybe you'd like to share who's coming, the date, and where it's going to be held.
Well, the name of the person who's coming is Jolene Brackey. And she, like Barb said, is nationally acclaimed and known for talking in the field of dementia care. And the date that's coming up is going to be Tuesday, November 17th. And the day will run from 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock, something like that.
Yeah.
And Barb, I have to say, too, I'm excited because this is the capstone project of ACT on Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Locally, we got a grant, and we were able to do many things through the year with this project. There was an action committee formed, and this committee was bringing many different types of dementia awareness activities. They were really promoting that concept of a dementia-friendly community. Have you heard of that?
Yes, I have heard of that, and I think it's really interesting here in this community, and I know being part of that action team, I found it very surprising when we did the surveys that people said they knew about dementia, but as we kept asking further questions, I think as a committee we learned that they really didn't know about dementia. And so this is one of the culminating big events that this big grant for this year is going to culminate in having this national speaker come in. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and about what Jolene has done over the years, but I'm going to flip over to Becca Badgett. We need to know that Jolene has been in our community before, and she's had an impact already in Marshall. So Becca, can you share your experience with Jolene?
Sure, I'd be happy to. When Morningside Heights Care Center opened their memory care unit, we had Jolene Brackey come and help design the unit. And not only did she design the unit, but she helped educate staff, and I had a great opportunity to kind of work under her then. And so, yes, she has wonderful tips.
Yeah, do you remember about what year that was?
I want to say about 2004, 2005. Does that sound about right? Yes.
Yeah. I was trying to remember too.
Yes.
I'm thinking the early 2000s,
Yes,
so about
yes.
10 years ago.
Yes.
Remember, Jolene, she's quite unique because she comes not with a medical background or necessarily healthcare. She was an interior designer.
Right.
And she wanted to find a job where she could make a difference or have more of an impact on people's lives.
Right.
And that led her to kind of looking at environments and how to design a unit, so that's there. But then she branched off into being able to help people communicate better with a loved one who has the condition.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a real key thing. But I want to ask Becca something before we hop back. Do you remember from designing that unit at Morningside Heights, was there one thing that you still remember to this day that she said, don't forget this, or something that she put in place?
I think the biggest thing I remember is to be in the moment that the person with dementia is. Don't try to bring them back to the current time. Join them where they're at and create those moments of joy. Make them happy. Find the things that they enjoy doing, the things that bring them happiness. So whether it's baking, whether it's woodworking, whether it's, sewing, those are the things they enjoy.
Yeah.
She gave us great ideas of having treasure boxes. So we had some treasure boxes, like a sewing box. So if a lady was an avid sewer, they could look through this treasure box with all kinds of sewing supplies in, and yes, just really brought joy to them, made them happy.
And typical in that instance, if it was someone who loved sewing and you had a sewing treasure box and you opened it up, what would maybe not all the time, but would be typical, is that all of a sudden their memories would come flooding out and the family would be able to hear a story that perhaps they've never heard.
Exactly. And be able to connect with them, be able to connect in the moment with them and see the happiness these things bring them. Yes. So it's a great way for families to connect, as well as staff, even for staff to connect with them. So, yes.
I love that you touched on that, because that's the one thing I remember too the last time that I heard her, is being in that moment. But I think Jaen also touched on that Jolene got into this because she really wanted to help people with the communication piece. And maybe you can touch on that a little bit more, Jaen.
Well, as Becca said, really going where they are. You think about a sewing basket or a sewing treasure box. It isn't so much that they're going to sew a project. I mean, some people, depending on their ability, maybe could do some kind of a project.
Right.
But it's more about what that can conjure up in their memory to really go where they are. Or if someone was on the farm all the time, is there some way just even to, talk about what the chores were like? Or because with the disease, often it is kind of a regression, so that as you're going back in time, it's things that are seem more clear to you than the current times.
Right.
And so that you can have a happy moment remembering something, talking about the corn crop or combining, and how did you used to do that, and really remarking with them or going down that road with them of a happy time.
Right. And I think you guys really touch on it, is just being in that moment. So like for the sewing treasure box, I mean, you think of the farmer, I can see mason jars with little seed corn soybeans, or gloves just laying there, sitting there, and then all of a sudden they're going to say, oh, remember that year when we had oodles of rain and we didn't get our crop into, and then it was snowing and we were combining corn. I mean, I would just go on and on. It's being at that moment. And I think Jolene is really good at helping us with this piece of communication. And
because people struggle often, Barb, you want to be in the current moment, or I want to tell you about this. And sometimes with different kinds of dementia, you can kind of be in two worlds. There's parts, that you can relate to, or you hear a current news event or something. But it's like we're forcing the communication by trying to get them to, back when I first started, it was all about something called reality orientation. And we were all about saying, today is Tuesday, today is Wednesday, and you are in Marshall, Minnesota. I love that it's more of this kind of approach where you can really connect with someone again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think you really hit on a huge thing. So often in this world, we want to make sure everybody knows what day it is, what time it is, where they're at, what they're doing, and what they should have been doing, and where they're going. And really, if you're dealing with someone in your family who has Alzheimer's or dementia,
it really doesn't matter. Yes, that's exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
So and I think that's the exciting part about that, is really getting there. And I'm hoping, and maybe one of you two can share an experience, and maybe you've seen it in your years of working with people with dementia, that through Jolene, I think we learn how to visit again. We forget that.
I think it's all about making that connection, having relationships, but making that person with dementia feel that they have a connection with you, that they can trust you, that they're happy to do things with you. I know a great example, like yesterday we carved pumpkins at Heritage Point, and just seeing the ladies separate the seeds and scoop it out and see how happy they were. It was great. It was wonderful to see them in that moment, having so much fun, but feeling that they have a purpose as well, to help. So
to kind of ignite that, I think. It isn't about, are you doing it the right way? Are you doing it properly? Or you should scrape it this way or that. It's like helping them kind of problem solve and enjoy the activity.
Exactly.
It brings back good memories.
Yeah. And it kind of reminds me of, with having grandchildren, it's just same with young kids. And I think we often forget that even though they're adults, we got to capture the moments as we did with our young kids, that it doesn't matter if it was done exactly right.
It's not about
just being there.
Yes, it's not about the end result. It's about the process, the journey along the way, and having a good time enjoying what you're doing. Yes.
And some compliments and some encouragement.
Yes.
I think what falls to us is that we are the ones kind of creating these pieces.
Right.
In the past, I think we've looked to the person with dementia, well, be better, act differently, and it's like, it's about us finding a way to reach that person.
Yeah, and I think that's really critical. And I think it's a huge learning curve for anybody who's been in the field for any length of time. This is not what we're normally taught to do. We're taught to say, no, that's your husband. No, you have 3 children. And the person may go, I don't have any kids. I mean, like, what are you talking about? And it's like, okay, fine, you don't have any kids. Does it matter? No. But figuring out where they're at and not trying to correct, because I think when we correct, we start sending them a message that, wait, there's something wrong with you.
But you might be able to connect on school days.
Yeah.
And by school days, maybe then you can talk about, oh, that's right, you had a brother that was older than you, or you can kind of build up to making those connections again. It isn't always like right there, Johnny on the spot.
Right.
Give them time.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's just making that connection with wherever their connecting point is, so then you can build on that and find those moments where you go, wow, I had a really good day.
Absolutely.
Had a really, really good day. Let's talk a little bit more about Jolene. What is she going to come in? We know it's November 17th. We're going to have meet and greet with Jolene at 8 a.m. Of course, there'll be some coffee and treats at 7:45. But her first session is on creating moments of joy, and we've been talking about that. Maybe we can just touch on that a little bit more from Jolene's aspect, and I know she has a book on that.
What I would start out with is that this is open to the whole community. So whether you're working in the field, or if you're a family member, or if you just want to know more about this is an opportunity to learn more.
And I also want to add that Jolene is a very enthusiastic, easy listening, wonderful presenter. You will enjoy this time that you have with her. She's a very dynamic presenter, and you'll come away with tips. Yeah,
and I don't think you're going to be just listening.
Right, exactly.
You're not going to be just
She
listening.
will have you engaged. Yes. So.
And she does have a book. It's called Creating Moments of Joy. And from that, too, she has some wonderful, I want to say, different programs that you can find on her website and different tools.
Topics.
And I think what she likes to do when she makes a presentation, Barb, is really adapt it to kind of who's there.
Yeah.
So she will... if you pop up with a question or if you have a situation, she'll respond to that and kind of help you.
Yeah.
Again, if you're having trouble with someone following through on something, even like an eating situation, or maybe getting showered or something like that. I mean, she would help find ways to kind of help you navigate some of those things again.
Navigate through that, yeah. And I really like that about her when she is presenting. I mean, if you think about it, if you were to have to go out and give a 2-hour presentation, a lunch break, and another 2-hour presentation, and during that process, someone comes up, here's my scenario. She just turns and said, how can I help you? And she solves it, or she gives you some possibilities for solutions. We don't always know if it's the solution, but at least some more possibilities.
Things to try. Yes.
And I think that's just an amazing thing, because if you think about someone who's thinking of their 2-hour segment to make sure they cover their material, they engage the audience, to have it disruptive, but she just takes those disruptions
in stride,
and then she gives you solutions and goes back to where she was, and she does very well. And I know she also, like you said, Jane, she comes into the community. She doesn't have a canned presentation. She really looks at the community and says, okay, where are you guys at? What's going on? She tries to figure out resources, possibilities within a community. So as she goes and does the presentation, then she knows.
She really wants to engage with every possible person. Again, family members, caregivers, nursing staff, activity staff, and this is going to be a regional event as well, so we're really trying to open up the doors, but it's going to be welcome to everyone. And I didn't mention where it's going to be, so we're looking.
Oh, we should touch on that, huh?
It's that Tuesday in November. It's going to be at First Lutheran Church, which is at the corner of A and Church Street. So it's, we're going to be actually in the north, or the proper of the church, so that we'll have lots of room.
Yeah.
So we're
nice seating, good audio,
Yes,
so it'll be just a wonderful setting
experience.
for
Yes.
having that. We should talk a little bit too about the fee, and then we'll get back to the schedule. The fee is $10, right?
correct.
And that's going to also include
A lunch.
a lunch, a box lunch. So it's the speaker and a box lunch. And currently we are going to offer certificates of attendance, and we're hoping to get CEUs. So we are working on that.
For different professional groups, yes.
Yeah, so we are working on that portion of it. So
And then we'll have a break and then come back in the second 2-hour session. And if it only works for you to come for one or the other, that would work. We just really want attendance that day. And we would really like if everyone would register, if we would accept walk-ins, but we really want to have a number so we can know what kind of food to order and just be more prepared.
yeah, it's just easier to know how many lunches to order. I mean, if you have 100 registered and 200 walked in, I hope you're not the cook. It just makes that whole process work a lot smoother. So, but we do encourage you to pre-register, and we'll get to that later on. The second session with Jolene Brackey is memory-enhanced activities. And my mind just kind of runs all over the place. And Becca, maybe you can touch on a few things. Like you just said, you just did pumpkins. Have you done some things at Heritage Point that kind of pop in mind when you think about memory-enhanced activities?
Yes, a lot of ladies like to bake, so we do baking. We like to bake cookies, yes.
I bet you the guys like to sample them.
They do. We always have taste testers ready for
Yeah.
when they come out of the oven. But yeah, just alone the smell of the cookies might bring back some memories to days when they were at home baking cookies for their children. So yes, we really just, I think it's all about finding activities that they enjoy doing, things that they once did that they really enjoyed.
It's had success with music, too.
Yes, music is
yeah.
is a wonderful, wonderful activity that they really enjoy, and that once again invokes such positive emotion. It's amazing to see people that don't speak, that they've lost the ability to speak, but you play music, hymns that they've known their whole life, and they begin to sing and they know all the words. So that's just amazing. Yes, so she's going to give us some great tips, some great ideas, some great activities that people can do with their loved ones, that staff could do with their tenants or residents at their care facilities. So she's just going to give us some amazing tools. Yes.
And Barb, before you mentioned about visiting, I think that's also what that section will be about in the afternoon. Just how to be in the moment, have a productive visit. Maybe you bring something with you that you can talk about, maybe it's kind of a treasure from the basement or the attic that, do you remember this, Mom? Or, just kind of having, getting you more at ease to come where you don't dread going because they're going to ask the same questions over and over. It's like you come with a topic, be prepared.
And that part really, really excites me because I think so often people say, okay, they got dementia, they won't know if I came, they don't remember me, it's stressful for me, so I'm just not going.
And that's not what we want.
And I mean, if you were the person with dementia, you still feel that loss, even though if you go have a visitor, and 5 minutes later, staff will ask, and they'll say, oh, nobody's been here for months. But yet, when you were there, they had that moment of connection. And if we can somehow, as a community, give you those tools so that you go in for that visit and you don't feel like it's the stress of the same question again and again, and I don't know what to do, but have something that you can, some possibilities you can try.
Absolutely.
That's what this part is about.
And it might be even something where you can interact, like maybe some hand care, like a hand massage or some nail polish if it's a gal, but being able to think of that. Or with my mother-in-law, when she was in the nursing home, I had good success with some books, and there's so many beautiful, young adult literature books now that have lovely pictures and great illustrations, and we just really connected over those books. And I know there's some that are specially written now as memory enhancement kinds of tools too.
Yeah, and that's a good point because so often we forget that there's so many tools right here in the community that sometimes we just got to know that we tap them. The other thing that you did touch on is you were talking about the hand massage and the fingernails. I think one of the things that a lot of these people no longer get is the simple act of touch. I mean, think about that. I mean, all your life you're touching something or someone, and specifically someone, and that sense of touch, you don't have to say a word. But sometimes just that sense of just holding their hand can all of a sudden open up a conversation. So sometimes you don't necessarily always need something.
Barb, I caught the show with you and Heather where you talked about legacies.
Yeah.
I think that's a time when that might come out, when you have that still quiet moment and, there might be a conversation that happens that you wouldn't have expected. So you have to be patient or kind of, be there to hear it or be a good listener when it would come. Because you can still capture those moments even with someone who has, regressed or had some very troubling times through memory loss.
Right. And I think you really touch on it. And I think sometimes, too, when we have that sense of touch and they start opening up, we just want to start asking questions. And it's like, no, just listen. And then go home and capture it.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't lose that moment. Go home and share it. I mean, there's so many ways that you can capture it. And for each person, that's very, very, very different.
And wherever you work, whether it's, people who see each other at the adult community center, or maybe it's at the bank or at the grocery store, like how we just need to pause a little bit more to kind of go, connect to that person. We use that word a lot today, but it is about trying to be in the moment and finding that joy that you can connect on with somebody.
Yeah, because it's not how many things you can get done.
Right.
It's can you make that moment of connection.
Yes.
And that really makes a difference. For me also, and I think I talked to Jaen with this last time that we were talking about doing this, and I see it as more, this event is not only for those with Alzheimer's or dementia. I really see it as, and the more I thought about it, I see it as for the whole family. And the reason I see that is in today's world, I mean, how often do you go out and you see people, they're on their phones? They're across the table, but they're on the phones. So I see this creating moments of joy as something for the whole family and learning that connection.
Yes.
It even goes back to if you have someone who's aging in your family, or maybe you're the child adult and your parent is aging and they've lost their spouse. You can simply take these things and capture that legacy. So I just see it as such a huge thing for this community.
Absolutely.
No matter what stage you're in, whether you're beginning aging, whether you're beginning dementia, maybe you're one of the fortunate people that you're living in this community and you have 3 generations in this community. How often do you go over and visit that generation that's 2 generations apart from you?
Yes.
And can you converse with them?
And what are you going to talk about?
Yeah. So I just see this as just that wonderful.
I like to call it life skills. It's something that is so basic, but really connecting on that human level that we just need to challenge ourselves and our families to do that. And again, what a great opportunity to do it in this environment and to have takeaways before the holidays.
Yeah.
And it also happens to be Alzheimer's Awareness Month and Caregiver Recognition Month in November. So it's really a nice time to, what can you talk about at the Thanksgiving dinner? How are you going to make your Thanksgiving different this year rather than just, having the dinner, are you really going to talk?
Right. And so often what happens on Thanksgiving, right? We have the food and we go watch football. So maybe this is the year where you try to capture one of those moments.
Well, you might have to balance that a little with the football guys, But we know what I'm getting at. Or check the game time and things like that. But
But I can even see in connecting it with football.
Absolutely.
When you were in high school, what did you do? Did you go to the football games?
Yes.
Just
past experiences.
Just tie it all in, and I'm sure I find it pretty amazing with the older generation. They remember the first basketball team that won state here in Marshall. I mean, you can talk to them about that forever, and it's never, ever old. You know, it was one of those moments that, or they remember playing basketball. And if they got to travel to another town, it was,
Yes.
And now we travel, what, two hours
Yes.
away? I mean, just those differences.
Lots of times
and what that looked like.
those long-term memories are still there. Those, yes, and it's just a way to open them up, to get them to share a little bit, to get them to think back, to be able to share those memories with you. And so, yes, often they lose their short-term memory. So getting them to go back when they were young, when they were teenagers, when they were in their early 20s, they have fabulous things to share.
Yeah.
So, yes.
And talking about Thanksgiving and football, I remember having a conversation with a gal who was on one of the state girls basketball teams in the area. And she had her old uniform yet. So I was thinking, what a wonderful conversation for her if one of her grandchildren brought their uniform. If she no longer has it, as they move on and progress, and just the sense of touch of that uniform would simply bring back
all those memories.
That whole conversation around something that, hey, I know about basketball, you know about basketball. What was cool, what were the drills you were doing? What were, what was that defining moment? Do you remember that one basket you made?
Yes.
And those are the things that just come flooding back.
Or things we might not know, like the pep club or different things that happened in the school days of yore that we wouldn't be doing anymore, or some of the cheers, some of looking, we have the internet now to help us, Barb.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really amazing because I know, for instance, in my job, I've learned a lot about Halloween in this town and stories that have been shared with me that I know that their children and grandchildren do not know. I know for a fact that they do not know. And so I really encourage people out there, that's what we're talking about, is just, it's okay. You can sit. You can be still for a half an hour. It's okay.
Yes.
Capture that moment.
That's great.
So it's just an awesome, awesome event we got coming up, and I think if there's one thing that I don't like about the changes going forward in the society is that we have forgotten how to visit. We have forgotten how to write a letter instead of an email or text, and we have forgotten how to stop and just really know the person we're with.
So everybody should stop on Tuesday, November 17th.
Right.
And we need to check in about the registration. We talked about that. How do they do that?
The cost is $10 per person. They can give us a call at the Adult Community Center at 537-6109, and that is area code 507. Or they can also email us at SR for Senior Center at chartermi.net, all small letters. But we're just really super excited.
We are about this great opportunity.
So we all say, please stop during your day. It's one day out of the year. It's a day that you will gain so much from. Come here, Jolene Brackey, creating moments of joy, and help your family create their own legacy. Thank you.